Wonder why I always dress in black. You never see bright colors on my back. Why does my appearance seem to have a somber tone? There's a reason for the things I got on. I'll wear the black for the poor and the beaten down, living in a hopeless, hungry side of town. I'll wear it for the prisoner who's long paid for his crime. He's there because he's a victim of the time. I'll wear the black for those who never read or listen to the words that Jesus said about the road to happiness through love and charity. Why you think he was talking straight to you and me? We're doing mighty fine, I do suppose, in a street good line and cars and fancy clothes. Just so we're reminded of the ones who are held back. Up front there ought to be a man in black. And I'll wear it for the sick and lonely old, for the reckless ones whose bad foot left them cold. I'll wear the black in the morning for lives that could have been. Every week we lose 100 fine young men. And I'll wear it for the thousands who have died, believing that the Lord was on their side. We're in for another 100,000 who have died, believing that we all were on their side. But there's things that never will be right, I know. Things need changing everywhere you go. Till we start to make a move, to make a few things right, you'll never see me wear that suit of white. Oh, I'd love to wear a rainbow every day, tell the world that everything's okay. I'll try to carry off little darkness on my black. Well then, I'm the man in black.
Good evening, everyone. As you're just joining us, I can see we don't have that many people in quite yet, but hopefully you'll come in. And a very good evening to you. It's quite a warm, pleasant day here today, so it's just nice to have spent most of the day outside. How are you, Alex? How are you doing? I can see you're busy with your head down. So
yeah, no, I'm not too bad. I had all your slides sorted actually, but it then said your file is too big, so you've got too many tonight. Apparently, we'll have to separate them down into two lots. So
I try and cut them down, but I see so many opportunities to illustrate things that I could put a slide in there, and I don't know. I'm a sort of visual person. I like to see an image, you know what I mean? I think, well, perhaps other people do as well, because, often a picture illustrates things very well, just it's very complementary to whatever you're talking about. So, and there is a lot to talk about tonight, not only the contents of the show, but also it's been a very, as I say, I've had quite a busy outdoor day, but it's been a very busy day on just in general. We have several sort of things that have happened today. And the first one that I'm going to briefly talk about before we get into tonight's main topic is the much vaunted and much awaited beginning of the release of the UFO files. Now, as you know, Trump promised to do this. I think he started going on about it back in February, and now we seem to be seeing the fruits of that, because the first sort of tranche, the first batch of some of the of those promised documents and pictures was released today. Now, a lot of what's on there, and I'm going to give you the website if you want to find it in a moment. A lot of what's on there are quite old pictures, sort of grainy black and white pictures, but you will see there are also quite a lot of documents. In fact, there are, in the current release, there are 17 pages of PDF files that you can look at and download. So if you want to go and have a look at what's been released today, jot this website down, because this is the website where they have been published to, and it's www.war, all in capitals. This is WAR, war.gov/UFO, and that's where you will find the released material. Okay, as I say, the photographs are nothing spectacular. I've sort of downloaded the one that I thought was the most sort of interesting looking, which is this one. If we've got it, Alex, please. If we've got that one, yeah, this one. Now, there is no comment on the validity of these photographs. They're just presented as is. Today, I suppose if you saw that, you'd think, well, that looks a little bit fake. But these are apparently photographs in the government files. Okay. And more interesting, perhaps, are some of the documents. Some of the documents, there are things on there like there are lots of memos that are sent to government departments. There's one particular memo from 1947, which was obviously a very famous year in the ufology world, it being the Roswell crash that year. Well, there's a memo to the United States Chief of Staff, which is talking about the fact that people are seeing flying saucers. So that's quite interesting. And remember, these, like I said, these are serious people. These are not frivolous memos. You know, they're intergovernmental memos. So there are things of that nature on there, and a lot more that I haven't had chance to look at, because I only went to that website this afternoon, and I briefly snatched this, and I've briefly had a look at a few bits and bobs. So if you're interested in this, in the beginning of this disclosure, then I'll give you that website once again. It's www.war.gov/UFO. And as I say, you'll find a lot of documents on there in PDF format. Okay. What else? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is apparently going to be a weekly thing from now on. There's going to be one document and photograph drop every week, and this is the first. Now, hopefully, in that will come, I think it's 40, could be 42, or it could be 46 videos that have been requested by the committee that's looking into this, that's actually looking into the disclosure. They are the people who have pushed for this disclosure. So it's hopefully, as we go through time, things might we might get some more meat on that bone. But as I say, I've not had a good look at any of the documents, and if you're interested, go and look. So that's one of today's sort of stories. Now, of course, here in the UK, we've been, yesterday we were going through local council elections. And as predicted, the Labour Party, the party of government, have received an absolute drubbing at those local elections. So that it wasn't unexpected. It was sort of long telegraphed that that they were probably going to get pasted at these elections. Now, when I was looking at this afternoon, all of the results weren't in, but it very much looked, and it probably looks even more so now, that Reform are the big winners. Reform UK have gained an awful lot of council seats. When I checked, they'd won 658, but when Alex sent me some information or posted some information to myself and Ian, I think there was over 900. And you sent me a slide, as always. You put a slide on our shared page, didn't you? Yeah, there we go. So that shows Reform get up by 950 council seats, making them the biggest party in many councils. In fact, the majority on quite a few. The Greens did quite well as well. You can see they got 302. So there's a big step forward for Greens as well. Okay, so some people would say, well, yeah, what we're seeing now is the end of the old two-party system, the Liberal, three-party system, but the Liberals were never a great contributor to it. The Labour and Conservative sort of red-blue control of our elections, of our government, so swinging from one to the other. This does indicate that, but on the other hand, it indicates the mood of the country is pushing towards reform. And I said to Alex, much as I loathe Labour, this seems to be a case of, yeah, I know I do, the little bell there to tell me I loathe Labour. And the Chinese are very good at sending me little bells every so often. So we very much seem to be jumping out of the Labour frying pan into the Reform fire. Now, what that bodes for the eventual parliamentary elections, which are some while away yet. But Reform seem to have built up a good head of steam in the local elections. Now, I said to Alex yesterday, I believe, I said to Alex and Ian, in fact, on our shared site, I said, my town was not having local elections. And I believed that because I hadn't received any polling card, no instructions. and I hadn't received any flyers from any parties, so I just assumed we weren't having one. But apparently there was, and my town of Doncaster now has a Reform-dominated council. So that is, you might call that historic, because my town is in what used to be called the Red Wall. It is a staunch Labour, former mining town, former industrial hub, railway hub, manufacturing hub. All of that's gone now, of course. But it has remained a Labour-dominated town. And if I'm correct, I think it has been a Labour-dominated council since just after the First World War. So that is a monumental change. Okay, so we now have, I think it's 37 of the 56 wards in my town, 55 wards, sorry, 37 of the 55 wards in my town are now controlled by Reform councillors. Okay, now the turnout in England was around just over 46%, which is the highest turnout in many, many years for local by-elections. So there was an awful lot of participation. And a lot of that participation is driven by anger. It's driven by anger against Labour. And just as we normally have in our political system, that has resulted in a swing to, well, in this case, a completely untested, untried party that are offering some pretty radical policies. Okay. All right. So, and just to round that out, Keir Starmer, the wonderful Keir, never hear Keir, has said he has no plans to quit his position despite this humiliating defeat. But in the background, you can almost hear the knives being sharpened. I would think this may spell his, well, it may be the Ides of March for him. Not exactly in March, but he may receive the knife to the back. Okay. So that's so go on.
Sorry, if you don't mind a second, Susan's asked if I can put the Welsh resorts up. So
yes, yeah, because you did post them as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
We haven't got the Scottish ones at the moment, have we?
I have, but we haven't. The one thing we can say is we haven't fallen for the Reform thing at the moment.
Oh, that's, well, thank goodness. So what we got there? Plaid Cymru.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
we've got a lot of teal as well.
Yeah, and Reform coming in a close second. Labour right down, Conservative right down, Greens surprisingly only on 2, and Lib Dems only on 1. Okay, so that again, that's indicative of that swing towards Reform. Now, in terms of obviously, I'm not Welsh. I don't live in Wales. I never have. I'm not really au fait with Plaid Cymru's policies. I don't know what kind of party they are really. Whether are they Labour light? Are they Conservative light? Perhaps you can tell us, Suzanne. What kind of? I know they're a kind of Welsh SDP, not SDP, a Welsh independence party, but I'm not sure what sort of side they come down on. Okay. Scottish. Not unexpected and rather disappointing, but yeah.
Well, at least all I can say is at least we haven't voted reforming too
Zero.
many seats. Zero at that stage. I don't know
Yeah.
whether they would pick anything on the list seats or not.
Yeah. Did you see any candidates being stood? Was the one in your ward, wherever you are? You're in Alexandria, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I've well done Barton, it comes under, but I think there was. I didn't pay much attention because all I did on mine is I wrote right across the middle of it. None of these warmongers represent me. I stand for peace.
Very well done. Very well done.
So,
And had I received an invitation to go and vote, then I would have done something very similar. But it is good to see that the people of Scotland have, well, they have some sense. At least they didn't vote for reform. They went for the better the devil you know option, it seems, of the SNP. Okay. So no real change. Okay. So finally, before we get to our main event, as it were, I just want to comment, in case anybody's missed it, about the 6 people who were involved in the Palestine Action Trial, which was taking place at Woolwich Crown Court. Out of the 6 defendants that were in that case, 4 have been found guilty of criminal damage. If you remember, the damage occurred at Elbit Systems, where they broke in. Well, they actually broke in using a former prison van, and they caused an estimated roughly about £1 million worth of damage to drones and things like that Elbit Systems were building for the Israeli fucking army. So we've got a list of the we can put, I think did I send you a slide, Alex, of the 6 defendants? Yeah, there they are. Okay, so we've got Charlotte Head, age 30, Samuel Corner, age 23, Leona Camino, age 30, and Fatima Rajwani, she's 21. They are the 4 that have been. Found guilty of criminal damage. Now, Zoe Rogers and Jordan Devlin have both been acquitted on that charge, and they walked free from the court today. The other 4 have been remanded in custody awaiting sentencing, and that sentencing will take place on June the 21st. Okay. Now, Samuel Corner was also found guilty of inflicting grievous bodily harm by striking Police Sergeant Kate Evans with a sledgehammer and fracturing her spine. So no doubt that is a pretty serious charge. I don't know if it still is. It used to be called Section 18, which replaced the old term grievous bodily harm. They replaced it with the word Section 18, and that can carry quite a hefty sentence. So we shall await and see what they are charged with. The criminal damage, because the amount, a non-custodial sentence is normally passed for lower levels of criminal damage, and it's worked out on the amount of damage estimated in monetary terms that is estimated to have been caused. So they're at the top end of the scale. There is the chance that they will get a custodial sentence. Now, there were rumours prior and during to the trial that these, if found guilty, the sentences handed down would be handed down under the Terrorism Act. Now, as I say, we haven't got to the sentencing part. We haven't got to the sentencing date until June. So we really will await what these, in my mind, heroes get for their actions. Okay, so that's kind of a brief look at some of what's been going on today. I haven't mentioned obviously what's going on in Iran, the whole Trump love tap thing, the whole thing about the US warship that the Iranians claim to have struck. I will leave you to find and look for that if you want to, and no doubt Ian will have a comprehensive report on what's going on Sunday, and as he does it so much better than I can, I will leave that. Okay. All right. Now talking about Sundays, after last Sunday's look into the book of Revelation, it kind of got me thinking how the early church seemed to be a very fragmented and divided and diverse place in terms of belief. So I thought I'd delve into one of these parallel versions, out of which the Bible as we know it finally emerged. Now, to start with, I'm gonna read you a quote, and this is from the Harvard historian of religion, Karen L. King, who we can see here at slide 1. That's Carol L. King. She's written several books on religious history, particularly Christian religious history. So she is a very good source to look at, very good source to inquire of, you might say. And this is what she wrote in relation to the times that we were talking about on Sunday, the times of the early church. And I quote, this is what she said. I've just upset the dog. At this time, she said, Christianity was still young and unsettled and highly diverse. It was an unsettled and highly diverse religious movement. Nothing of what would later define it really existed. There was no fixed canon of scripture, no fixed creed or ritual, no established institutions or hierarchy of bishops. The story of Christianity and Christian origins is the story of the formation of these ideas and institutions. It is a story fraught with conflict and controversy. Many competing varieties flourished alongside each other. That's an extract of what she wrote. Okay. So tonight, I thought I'd take a look at one of these versions. I thought I'd take a look at one of these early Christian versions that come from this time when there was no official shared standard of orthodoxy, you might say, or indeed a shared standard of heresy. Everything was very much up in the air, open to interpretation. So tonight I'm going to dive into Gnosticism. Now, many of you, people have heard of Gnosticism, the Gnostic writings. Quite a few less, I would guess, have actually delved into any of this. Now, while we don't exactly know when Gnosticism arose, it was certainly very well established by the 2nd century AD, and it was right across the Roman Empire. Now, Gnosticism itself had different versions. There were different Gnostic sects. accounts of what might be called, well, there were different versions of what might be called the creation story. Only slight variations. There were different versions of the story of the life of Jesus. There were different kind of accounts, but we'll kind of get into all of that shortly. Now, much of what remains of Gnostic writings comes from what's called the Nag Hammadi Library, and this was discovered near the Egyptian town of the same name, Nag Hammadi, back in 1945. Let's have a look at slide 2. And this is part of that Nag Hammadi library. And this was discovered by an Egyptian farmer. And what he discovered inside a large clay vessel were 12 leather-bound codices, or collections of texts, written on papyrus. And there was a portion of a 13th. So there were 12 complete and one partial codices is what they are referred to. And in all, this what's called library contained 52 Gnostic works, 52 Gnostic texts, as well as 3 works from the Corpus Hermeticum. Now, the Corpus Hermeticum are texts attributed to the legendary Greek scholar known as Hermes. Let me get this word right. Trismegistus. Yeah, that's correct. I did not know that. I hadn't heard of this guy prior to my research. Trismegistus. And here we can kind of see him at slide 3. He's the sort of taller, wiser sort of looking one. Looks a bit like Ian in a pointy hat. All right. Okay. Now, this character seems to be a combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. But he's also been identified at various times as the prophet Idris, and the prophet Idris is the biblical Enoch. Okay. Now, these works are, oh, sorry. I've misplaced my notes. 2 seconds. Oh, there we go. All right. So these works by this man are on a variety of. When I say by this man, they are attributed to him because there is no proof that he ever existed. But they're on subjects such as astrology and medicine and drugs and alchemy and magic. Now, as well as all this, the jar contained a partial copy of Plato's Republic. And all of these works were written in Coptic. Now, Coptic was a language spoken in Romanized Egypt before Arabic. Okay. Now, the best hypothesis of the origin of all this, or the contents of this jar, is that they had come from a nearby Pachomian monastery, which was an order peculiar to Egypt, the Pachomians. And the texts all date to the 4th century. And the theory goes that they were buried after Saint Athanasius, who we can see here at slide 4, who was a real man, a real bishop in the early church. Saint Athanasius condemned the use of non-canonical books, so books outside of the canon of authorized literature. And he did this in his annual letter to the Eastern churches in 367 AD. So it's very likely that these books were buried to hide them, to keep them away from prying eyes, and to keep away the possibility of accusations of possessing and reading unauthorized books. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, there were 52 texts in all, but the ones people may have heard of amongst these this collection are here at slide 5. So you've got now Muhammad Ali was the guy who discovered that library. He was as I say, an Egyptian farmer, and in there, what they are calling the primary Gnostic texts are the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, the Gospel of the Egyptians, the Secret Book of James, the Apocalypse of Paul, the letter of Peter to Philip, and the Apocalypse of Peter. Now, there have been other copies of these texts found, but the Nag Hammadi, that library contains the only known complete copy of the Gospel of Thomas. So that is the only complete example ever found. Now, none of these books made it into the Bible, and they were considered heretical by the Church of Rome in later times. The reason we don't have much Gnostic writings is for this very reason. They were heretical texts. Okay, quick drink. Trismegistus. No. Trismegistus. Okay, that's the wrong guy. Okay, so with all that said, let's look back at the first thing that got Gnostics persecuted, that got them expelled from the church, tried for heresy, and condemned for heresy. And for this, we've got to go all the way back to the creation story, the original story that the Gnostic text says Jesus taught. Now, the story begins before time existed, before there was the universe, before there was matter or light, or even space and time. Before all of this, there was only one thing, and the Gnostics called this the pleroma, which is a Greek word meaning fullness. Slide 6, please, Alex. And the pleroma, which is in the center of this illustration, is in essence the true God. It existed and it exists beyond all dimensions and structures that are in existence. Basically, it exists outside of our reality. Now, the edges of the pleroma are what the Gnostics call the monad. And the pleroma and the monad existed before all physical things, as I said. Now, the Valentinian Gnostics, their writings in the 2nd century, before the church had kind of consolidated enough power, you might say, to burn their libraries, they described the monad as existing in perfect silence and perfect rest. There was no desire, it lacked nothing, it needed no action in the sense of any deliberate will. It just was. The monad simply was and is and was existing in a state of total self-completeness. Now, the Apocrypha of John attempts to describe the monad, but it immediately runs into the fundamental problem that language is designed to describe things. Language is designed to describe the world around us. And the monad is not a thing. John writes, and this is from the Apocrypha of John, the monad is not present in anything inferior to it. It is immeasurable, pure, and immaculate, ineffable, and perfect. But here is the question the Gnostics asked. It's like saying gnome, the silent G. Here's the question the Gnostics actually asked. If the monad is perfect, complete, and lacking nothing, then why does anything else exist at all? And the answer the Gnostic tradition gives is not creation in the biblical sense. Slide 7, please, Alex. It's not a God who decides to speak a universe into being. The answer is emanation or overflow. And that's why I illustrated this with an overflowing stream. The monad is so abundantly full, said the Gnostics, that its fullness could not be contained. And they refer to the same way a stream overflows, not because it chooses to overflow, but that is what happens to a stream of infinite water. So that was the why I illustrated that in this way, because that is an idea that your mind can grasp. It is an overflow. Okay. And from this overflowing, divine beings began to emerge. These beings were not created. They were not commanded into existence by a God. They arose organically from this divine overflow, the way that light emanates from a source without the source being diminished by that emanation. Okay, so light can come from a light bulb, but the light bulb is not consumed by that emanation. Now, these beings that originated from the overflow of the monad are called eons. Eons. Slide 8, please, Alex. Now, the eons represent what divine consciousness is when it expresses itself. Each eon is a duality, in essence, a pair or a complementary principle, demonstrating, the Gnostics said, that in the pleroma, nothing exists or arises from isolation. Nothing is created by only a single force acting on it. And so these eons were dual in nature. It's often expressed as a male and female, so that you can understand this duality. Now, the very structure of divine reality is, say the Gnostics, relational. It's a communion, and the dance of complementary principles is how they describe it. Now, this situation, again, could have and should have been the situation for all eternity. But unfortunately, the last eon that came into existence, whose name is Sophia, meaning wisdom in Greek. And here we can sort of see an illustration of Sophia. Slide 9, please. Now, we don't know what Sophia looked like, or whether, she was human or angelic looking or anything like that. But this is as good an illustration of any. So the last eon to emerge, Sophia, she was at the outermost edge of the pleroma, at the outermost edge of the monad, the furthest point from the center, you might say. And Sophia started to develop desires of her own, not in the kind of small way that humans desire things. Sophia's desires, she desired with the full force of divine consciousness. And what she desired was to know the pleroma directly. So she wanted direct contact and direct knowledge of the source from which she had come. And to do this, she bypassed her counterpart and tried to encounter this source without the participation of her divine twin, her divine other. And this created an imbalance. And the Gnostic texts are quite careful here. They don't call Sophia's desire sin nor pride in the way that later Christians would call Lucifer's rebellion pride. They explain that when a consciousness, even a divine consciousness, attempts to know the infinite through finite means, when it reaches beyond the relational structure that balances it, something then fractures, something goes wrong. And Sophia reached out without her counterpart, without her relational other. And without that balancing principle, things went wrong. And from this act, something emerged, something that had never existed before in the pleroma. And it was something incomplete, like the act itself. It was something fractured, something that would become the architect of our world. What emerged from Sophia's act was a being, but not a being of divine light, not another eon. It was something without the full inheritance of divine nature, and without any awareness of the source from which it had come. So it knew nothing of the pleroma, nothing of the monad. And the Apocrypha of John describes the moment when Sophia saw what her desire had produced and says that she was horrified. Now, some writings describe Sophia as birthing this entity, but whether you read one version or another, this entity came from Sophia's attempt to personally know the pleroma, the source of all divinity. And when she saw what her desire had produced, like I said, she was horrified. And she was horrified that it was utterly not what she had intended. And it was a being that bore only the faintest echo of divinity, and without any of divinity's real qualities. And so Sophia cast it away beyond the boundary of the pleroma and out into the infinite empty darkness. And this being has got several names in Gnostic tradition. John calls it Yaldabaoth. In other texts, it's called Saklos. In other texts, it's called the blind god. But the most commonly used term is the demiurge. Now, the demiurge is a Greek word meaning crafter or maker. Slide 10, please, Alex. And this is how the demiurge is most often, not always with wings, but it's usually illustrated as a lion-headed snake, a vast cosmic snake, you might say. And the demiurge was totally alone in this endless darkness. And so using the little divinity that he had got, he created the universe. Slide 11, please, Alex. There we go. That's a kind of representation of the sort of forging of the universe. And he created the universe and this earth, which is a kind of pale mimicry of the divine structure that he had never seen. Really of which he could not conceive, but which was kind of within him in some kind of small way from the small amount of divinity that he had inherited, as it were. Now, because his origin because of his origin from Sophia, and because he was completely alone, this is why he used this divinity to create the universe as we know it. So that's kind of explanation of creation. Now, at this point, I've got to really remind you that this was all written down by early Christians, not by people of another religion. And it was written in Christian texts. I can't say texts. Texts that were actually left out of the Bible when it was assembled. Now, some other known Gnostic texts say that the Aeon Sophia gave birth, as I say, to the demiurge. But whatever the version, the demiurge is the creator of all natural things, all material things. And because there were no others like the demiurge, he declared, I am God. There is no other. The demiurge is the God of the Old Testament, or not quite the God of the Old Testament. He is the originator of the God of the Old Testament, as we will go on to see. Slide 12, please, Alex. Now, when the Gnostics read the Old Testament, when they read, I am God and there is no other, and they also read God saying, I am a jealous God, they realized that this God was not truly divine, because jealousy is not a divine attribute. Slide 13, please, Alex. Jealousy is the emotion of a being who fears losing what it has. It fears losing it to something it perceives as a rival. But a truly infinite divine God, truly infinite divine source, has no rivals and therefore no jealousy. the demiurge couldn't create something that couldn't be challenged. So he was a jealous god. Now the demiurge created not only this dimension, but 7 others, which are often called the 7 heavens or the 7 worlds. And each of these dimensions, these heavens, these worlds, express it how you like, in order to rule these 7 heavens, he created beings to do that on his behalf. And these beings are called archons. Slide 14, please, Alex. So this is a kind of representation of an archon. These beings are beast-headed. They're not truly male nor female. They are, in essence, malevolent beings who block souls from leaving their individual realms. Then they do this in order to preserve the creation of their master and creator, the demiurge. So the system that was created was, you might liken it to a prison system. And the archons were tasked with making mankind. And when they made mankind susceptible to their evil influence. And it's the influence of the archons which makes mankind itself sinful and so trapped in this realm. So it was a perfect mechanism for trapping the souls of man in this realm. Now, the fact that there were 7 of them is revealed when in Genesis it said, well, the fact that there were multiples of them is revealed in Genesis when it says, let us make man in our image. Slide 15, please, Alex. Now, the 7 archons have names, and those names are Yalabaoth, who is the chief archon. And then we have Yahweh, and we have Sabaoth, Adonaios, Eloeos, Oreos, and Astapheos. So they are the 7 archons, these kind of malevolent evil beings. And note that one of them, and the one that controls this particular realm, is called Yahweh. Okay. So to sum up this little piece, the demiurge, identified as the creator God of the Old Testament, is an imperfect God who created an imperfect system. And he created a group of helpers called archons who maintain this system. And their functions in this realm are to keep humans ignorant by preventing what's called gnosis, and my throat's going, gnosis, which is knowledge and awakening. So they're there to prevent this. They're there to enforce fate and blind humans to karma and destiny, and bind humans to karma and destiny. And they're there to prevent souls from ascending to the true God, the pleroma. Now, the archons feed on human fear and suffering, and so influence mankind to produce fear, suffering, and death. And lastly, the archons keep the material world real to the human senses that were given to mankind. So essentially we are in what you might call a sealed system designed to trap its inhabitants within it. The jailers feed off of the negative emotions generated within the system, and they make sure that they try to make sure that no one escapes it. And the whole system was created not by the divine, but by something that was cast away, a kind of false god. Now, the archons created man in their image, but the man that they created was lifeless until that Sophia took pity on it and felt almost guilty because of she had caused this entire incident to happen. And so she breathed a divine spark into this creation, which I've illustrated at slide 16. Archons might be seen as the watchers. Yeah, you could say that. Keep you in loops, to keep you trapped. So Sophia breathed a divine spark, a piece of the divine into this creation that the archons had made. Now, in Gnosticism, there are 3 types of humans. There are hylics, who completely identify with matter and with the material world, and they completely identify with their body. They have no interest in spiritual matters, and they cannot achieve gnosis. They cannot achieve this knowledge and spiritual awakening because they're too bound to material things. And some versions also say that hylics returned to matter or dust after death. Okay. Now, the next sort of level within Gnosticism are psychics, soul ones. The psyche is the soul in Greek. So psychics are soul ones. And these have a soul, but not a fully awakened spirit, not a fully awakened spark, you might say. They follow religious law and they follow moral codes, and psychics can also achieve salvation through faith and works. They're identified as sort of mainstream Christians in the Gnostic texts, and they will be reincarnated and over and over and over again, unless they become what are called pneumatics. So let's look at the pneumatics. Slide 17, please, Alex, which is a kind of illustration of all of this. The Gnostic map of the soul. So you've got at the bottom there, you've got the hylics, the material people. They're spiritually blind. Yeah, they're full of vanity and pride and hate and all of the sort of shallow emotions, and they're locked to the material world. Then we have the psychics, the soul-centered people. They're kind of slightly above those things, like I say, but they're still trapped in this system. And then we get to the pneumatics. Now the pneumatics possess what's called an awakened divine spark, or it says here the spirit awakened person. They seek this gnosis. They seek this enlightenment, and they seek a direct experience of the divine. And they will return to the pleroma as they have, if and when they have gained enough knowledge and spiritual awakening to escape. to escape this system of the demiurge. Now, these are the true Gnostics, or the true enlightened ones. Okay. Now, I'll go briefly into how you achieve gnosis after we look at the Gnostic understanding of the Garden of Eden. So we're kind of moving through the Bible. We're moving through from the creations of everything through to the creation of man. And now we're moving into the Garden of Eden. Okay. And then we're going to look at Jesus. Now, in Gnosticism, the Garden of Eden was not a paradise. It was more akin to an enclosure, like you would have in a safari park. It was a place to put man. It was a controlled environment that was designed to keep this newly animated species, these human beings, in a state of ignorance, a kind of comfortable ignorance. You know, it was a garden with everything that they needed, but they were there in ignorance, say the Gnostics. Slide 18, please, Alex. So this kind of blissful ignorance was designed to keep them unaware of the fact that they contain this divine spark. And this divine spark is something that the archons do not possess. They do not have this divine spark, but they're fearful and they're envious of it. And so these creatures were confined, these creations were confined within this compound, this garden. And the command not to eat from the tree of knowledge isn't divine wisdom, said the Gnostics. It's a ruling by the prison system that forbade the inmates from learning what they truly were and where they truly were as well. So that it was to keep the knowledge that they could gain was knowledge of themselves and knowledge of the true nature of what they have been put into. And therefore, without that knowledge, they would stay in this garden. They would stay ignorant and stay asleep. Now, the Apocryphon of John makes this clear in a way that would have gotten its authors killed in later times in church history. In that work, it says, the demiurge says to the human beings, do not eat from the tree of knowledge, because he knows that if they ate, they would become aware of their divine origin and recognize that he was not the supreme God, but only a blind, limited, jealous craftsman who had mistaken his own creation for the universe. And then we move on to the serpent, who we can see in this slide. Well, we can see in this slide, but we can also see in the next slide, slide 19. There we go. That's kind of a better representation. Now, in the Gnostic writings, the serpent is not the villain. The serpent is humanity's first teacher and also its liberator. It is actually the first one to tell humanity the truth. The serpent says to Eve, you will not die if you eat from this tree. Remember, she had been told that they would die if they ate from the tree of knowledge. And the serpent says, no, you won't. The demiurge, he says, has deceived you. In truth, your eyes will be open and you will see his illusion. Now, in every version of Orthodox Christianity, this is the moment that mankind falls from grace. It is the beginning of sin. It is the original sin. But in the Gnostic version, this is actually the beginning of awakening. The serpent is, in fact, speaking, they say, with Sophia's voice, urging mankind towards knowledge, towards gnosis. Now, the demiurge's rage at the serpent is not righteous anger. It's the rage that his control has been challenged. The demiurge goes on to expel Adam and Eve because they are now a threat, because they are beginning to awaken to their own divine nature, and they really can't be managed in the same way as beings that have never questioned, like they were before, unquestioning. Now they've become unruly, full of knowledge, unmanageable, and they are beginning to question the nature of reality, and so they're cast out. They're cast out into the world. Slide 20, please, Alex. And there we can see them kind of being cast out. And the Bible says that I can't remember the name of the angel. The gate was guarded by an angel with a fiery sword. So they're thrown out into this world that is controlled by the archons. It's a world of suffering, a world of hardship, a world of fear and rage and all the negative things the archons have created. And this is the way mankind stays until a figure emerges who can break this system. And this is the Gnostic Jesus. The Gnostic Jesus is the most radical spiritual teacher in human history. Now, the canonical Gospels of Mark and Matthew and Mark and Luke and John are actually silent about the 18 years of Jesus's life between the ages of 12, when he appears briefly in the Temple of Jerusalem, debating and discussing scripture with the teachers there. They're silent until the age of 30, when his kind of public ministry begins. So this is 18 years of silence with no explanation of where he was during that time. Now, the Orthodox Church has always explained this. They've explained this missing time by saying nothing significant happened, and that Jesus was kind of living quietly in Nazareth and working as a carpenter. Slide 21. Please, Alex. That's a kind of representation of Jesus working as a carpenter. And he was doing that waiting for the appointed time. The Gnostic writings, and actually some Eastern sources that are not allied with the Gnostic Church at all, actually tell a completely different story. In the Gnostic version, Jesus traveled, and he traveled firstly to Egypt, where he found the mystery schools. The mystery schools which had kind of preserved fragments of genuine cosmic knowledge for thousands of years. I know that bell means I'm right. Yeah. Okay. The Pistis Sophia, which is the longest and most complete Gnostic texts that have ever been recovered, and which were actually purchased by the British Museum in 1795. This work was like I said, is the longest and largest Gnostic work ever discovered, was purchased by the British Museum in 1795, but it wasn't translated from the Coptic for over a century, because when scholars started to realize what its contents contained, what was in it, Orthodox Christianity was challenged. It contradicted Orthodox Christian doctrine. And this work, the Pistis Sophia, contains extensive details of Egyptian rituals, and it talks of the knowledge that Jesus acquired in Egypt. Slide 22, please, Alex. Okay. Now, from Egypt, the Gnostic writings say Jesus traveled to India, and Buddhist texts reference a teacher named Issa, the same name that Islam gives to Jesus. And the age of the writings, again, align with the kind of missing time in Jesus's life. So around the time that when these Buddhist texts were referring to a man called Issa, this is the kind of time that Jesus is reckoned to have been in India. And the parallels between certain Buddhist teachings and the teachings attributed to Jesus in the Gnostic texts would appear to be, well, really much more than just a coincidence. Now, Jesus also appears to echo the teachings of Zoroastrianism. I'm stumbling over my own words tonight. In respect of the referring to the cosmic war between light and darkness, between what you might call the source and the lesser powers. The lesser powers that constructed this mortal, this material world. By the time Jesus returned to Palestine at the age of 30, he was a fully initiated master who had spent almost 2 decades studying with the greatest wisdom traditions of the ancient world. And this is the explanation for the missing 18 years. So he went, he studied with the Egyptians, with the Buddhists, with Hindus, and the Persians. And he integrated all of this understanding into his message and his teachings, according to these Gnostic writings. Now, again, we come to a sort of different view of things when we come to the River Jordan, where Jesus is baptized by John. Slide 28, please, Alex. Now, if you recall, at this point in the Bible that we have, it says the Holy Spirit came down in the form of a dove and hovered above. Now, in the Gnostic tradition, it differs. It differs significantly from the Orthodox teaching, because what descends upon Jesus was not the Holy Spirit, but the Christ. And this may be kind of hard to grasp, but in Gnostic teaching, Jesus is not the Christ. The Christ is an emanation from the pleroma, a being of the monad, like the eons. And this being descended into the vessel of the man named Jesus, Issa. This divine being from the monad descended and entered the prepared body of Jesus, something that he had spent almost 20 years preparing for. Okay. So, and it entered into him for the specific duration of his 3-year public mission. That's what they said. The Gospel of the Hebrews, again, another book that isn't in the Bible, describes the moment kind of this way. Well, it describes the moment this way. The man Jesus had prepared his vessel through 20 years of training and initiation. The Christ, the pleroma consciousness, the divine light from beyond the archon system, entered that vessel and used it to awaken the divine spark in every human being who would listen to his teachings. Slide 24, please. So this is the Gnostic Jesus. Not a God, not a God made flesh, but a human vessel prepared and surrendered to the divine to demonstrate what is possible when the material reunites with divine spirit. This is the key that unlocks the Gospels. Orthodox Christianity maintains the miracles Jesus performed as part of Jesus' divine status. Was proof of Jesus' divine status. The Gnostic tradition sees the same events as what is possible for any consciousness that has awakened to its divine nature. Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is truly within us all." And this is the message. Slide 25, please, Alex. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever shall know himself shall find it. And this is the meaning of that message, that those that find and awaken the divine spark within themselves will find the kingdom of heaven through improvement and ascension. So when he said this, he was not speaking in metaphor. He was reinforcing he was referring to that divine spark within us. The Gnostics said that. That's what the Gnostics said. I'm having difficulty reading my own words, so I was stumbling over them. So I hope that you're understanding where the Gnostics are coming from. Okay. So the Gnostics said that this was his message, and his message also says that they say that he said that you do not need institutions or religions to speak for you. You don't need that. You don't need a barrier in between you and the divine. And Jesus also demonstrated this and said this. And he called the Pharisees the synagogue of Satan, that they were deceiving those who followed them. And so obviously he became, in their eyes, a heretic. He became this thing that was against them. So he told them, don't follow leaders. Don't let them tell you what to do or what the divine requires of you, because those very institutions that seek to control you are part of this archon system. They are part of the system of control. Unless they encourage personal awakening and shunning of the system, then they are false. Unless they require you to improve and escape and become a better being, then they are false. All right. Okay. And as I said, Jesus's rebellion against the system was demonstrated not only in his behavior, but also in his words. There we go. Let's have a bit of light. So before we go on, let me once again remind you, because it seems so counterintuitive to our received wisdom. It seems so counterintuitive to our church system. I have to remind you that this is Christian writing. This is Christian belief, but a form of Christianity that the Church of Rome mercilessly suppressed. And they mercilessly suppressed this as heresy. Slide 26, please, Alex. And they burnt entire libraries, and they persecuted and they killed anyone who dared to teach this, because it's not a doctrine that places the church at the center of a relationship with the divine. Because the kingdom of heaven lies within you, said the man who the Jesus called a magician. This is why they called Jesus, a magician and a charlatan, because he was teaching things that were saying you don't have to rely on these people. They're lying to you. And because he threatened their establishment and he threatened the religious control of his time. Now, a surprisingly large portion of the Apocrypha of John is taken up with Jesus's teachings. And it's taken up with Jesus' teachings on how to escape this system after death. And it describes how shortly after death, a bright tunnel of light appears. Slide 27. Please, Alex, sorry. So if you think this is a new idea, that this is something we've discovered through near-death experiences, not at all. This was being written about in the 2nd century, that after death, this bright tunnel of light appears. And it appears to your liberated essence, it says, to your spark or to your soul, if you will. And this tunnel often seems to lead to a beautiful garden where deceased relations or relatives appear. And they appear to stand waiting and beckoning to you. And sometimes it might be respected elders or teachers that have passed on. And these relatives or these sort of admired figures beckon to your soul to enter the light and join them. And your soul, your spark, feels an irresistible urge to do so, it says. And according to the Apocrypha of John, Jesus warns that this is a trap. It is a trap that awaits you at the end of the tunnel. At the end of this tunnel of light is not a paradise or heaven. It's reincarnation. As the soul enters the tunnel, all memory of its former incarnation, its former life, is wiped away, and the spark is channeled into another growing fetus, you might say, another being. And this, says Jesus, is how the archons trap a soul in the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It's impossible for a soul, a spark, to resist the pull of this tunnel of light unless during life you undergo training during your time in your body. And Jesus lays out precisely the steps you must master Now, this is a process that takes a minimum of at least 5 years, and I don't really have the time to run. I've read it all. I don't have time to run through all of that, all of the steps that you have to master. But if you're really interested, look up the Gnostic method of escaping rebirth. And those that have mastered these stages and memorize the questions that you have to ask of the archons, if you can do all of that and you can pass all of these sort of barriers, these tests, those that can do that will ascend through the 7 levels that the archons control. And at each level, you have to be prepared to defeat their deceptions. And the one who does this will finally join once again with the Pleroma, the true God. And they will escape reincarnation forever. Slide 28, please, Alex. Now, this knowledge is contained in other works. As I mentioned before, the Pistis Sophia. It's mentioned several times. Now, in Gnostic Christianity, let's get this straight. In Gnostic Christianity, Jesus is a man. He is, as he says, the Son of Man. But he is inhabited, possessed, you might say, by the Christ. And the Christ is not from the God of this system. It's not from the system of the demiurge. He is an eon who came from the Pleroma, the true God of existence. The Jesus Christ unity is the same duality as exists in all of the eons. Remember, I said they were dualities. So the Jesus Christ is a duality, man and the divine. And the Christ came to this earth to bring gnosis, knowledge of divine origin, to reveal the true God beyond the demiurge, and to awaken the divine spark in those who would listen to and practice his teachings. And finally, in this all too kind of brief look at Gnosticism, we come to the final part, you might say, the crucifixion of Jesus, the crucifixion story. Slide 29, please, Alex. Now, for Gnostics, the crucifixion represents the moment when the rulers of this world reveal their lack of power. They could wound his flesh, they say. They could humiliate his body. They could stage a public execution, and they could call this a victory. But they could not touch what was real. The Christ which was within him was untouched. What suffered was the outer garment. You might say the vessel, the outer garment. That is what suffered. To the Gnostics, only the ignorance of this world and this prison was on show. The archons who control this world mistook appearance for essence. And this lies at the heart of Gnosticism. The shell, the vessel, the body does not matter. The more you become refined, the more spiritual, the less the vessel and the system that it lives in, the system it inhabits, matter. The less that matters. Gnosticism also treats the figure of Judas differently. Slide 30, please, Alex. Okay, so there's Judas. Judas knows according to Gnosticism, Judas knows the body of Jesus is not the Christ. He is the enabler of what the Christ came to show in his death. Now, this is a dangerous idea because it overturns the kind of morality of appearances. The man branded as traitor is the only one who actually saw clearly. And this inversion is, well, it's almost central to Gnosticism. Things are not what they appear to be. Therefore, the obvious sinner might be closer to the truth than the pious conformist. To the Gnostics, the cross is a tree of knowledge, and knowledge is the beginning of awakening. The death of Jesus was not a blood sacrifice to calm a wrathful, vengeful deity who demanded blood sacrifice. If you remember, throughout the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament was always given blood sacrifices, and there were detailed instructions about which parts were to be given to God and which parts were to be given to the priests. And sacrifice, blood sacrifice, was what God, the vengeful, wrathful, jealous deity, wanted. That's what this deity wanted. And the sacrifice of Jesus is viewed in the same manner, that Jesus was not a blood sacrifice. He was not there to calm this wrathful deity. He was not there to stand in our stead. The lesson of the Christ, according to Gnosticism, is that the rulers of this world can only attack the vessel, that which is of this world, that which is of this prison system. Okay. All right. Now, their authority, the authority of the archons, the authority of this system is real, but it's only real within a narrow field. They can control the entire system. They can control everything about it. They can control governments. They can control everything in this system because it is their system. This whole world lies in their power. This whole world is lying in the power of the archons and the demiurge. It is the Satan system, you might say. But these entities are powerless before the direct knowledge of what you are. Orthodox faith places salvation at the end of time. You must endure. You must stay faithful. You must believe. And then one day, the tombs will open and the dead will rise and the story will resolve, you might say. But the Gnostics believed, and they still believe, because there is still one Gnostic sect in existence to this day, the Mandorian sector, who we can see here at slide 31. Okay, so this is a Gnostic sect that still exists. And for them, this message meant stay asleep, stay ignorant. And one day your reward might come. The Gnostic message is do not wait. Do not cling to the flesh as your definition of what is real. Do not postpone awakening by, turning it into some kind of future event. There will be salvation at the end, if only that you wait long enough and that you are, obedient enough. If you follow all the rules, one day your reward will come. This is not Gnosticism. This is not what Gnosticism says. It is not some kind of future event. The resurrection, according to Gnosticism, is here, and it is now. The door stands open. The problem is that we kind of keep choosing the familiar cell. The prison seems more comfortable than the unknown outside. So we, even though the door is open, we remain in the cell. The trap is not only outside you, it's also within your mind. It's in the mind that believes the world is all there is. And you do not need, say Gnostics, you do not need an external hand, nor an external organization to roll that stone away. Slide 32. You do not need these people to open the door for you, because the door stands open. This is why the Gnostics were dangerous. This is why the Gnostics were dangerous, because like Jesus and Christ, the Jesus Christ, which is, the duality, because like Jesus demonstrated to you, you do not need them, because the kingdom of heaven, the power to free yourself from the system, already lies within you, in that divine spark that is not of this world, not of this constructed reality that you are being held in. Now, as the title of tonight's show indicated, this is only a rough guide. This is only a very rough guide to Gnosticism. It's just a skimming. I just want to try and give the essence of what Gnosticism is about, and what the Gnostic texts contain. Now, much has been lost because basically it was burned and it was purged and it was removed from existence. Slide 32, please, Alex. And it was removed from existence by a jealous church who, like the Gnostic creator, the demiurge, only offer an illusion. But I think you will agree that this is Christianity like you have never heard of before, but a version that seems to explain many of the things that Jesus said and many of the things that he taught in many ways better than the simple gospels that we have. The message is far deeper but also far simpler. Jesus taught that you are in prison, but yet it is a prison that you can escape, and that the divine spark within you is your way of escaping. All else is illusion. All else is lies. All else is the system that you have been trapped in. This is the message of Gnosticism. This is one of the early Christian beliefs, and this is the belief that what became the Church of Rome tried so hard to purge from the world, because it said basically you do not need them. It said, like the message of Jesus, said that you do not need other people to stand in the way. The door is open and the kingdom of heaven lies within you. So that's a brief look at Gnosticism. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope, like me, you're going to investigate Gnosticism further, because there's an awful lot more to look at. the whole process of how you escape this reality like I said, is detailed and laid out, and I've read it, but I thought I cannot present all of that because it'll take half the program to go into. But it's worth looking at, and if you're interested, like I am, in exploration, if you're interested in knowing, if you're interested in what people believe and what people believed, and what people sought to make others not believe, then perhaps it might be worth investigating. Okay. Now that was quite a lengthy presentation, but probably one of the longest I've done. And even with all that, I could only squeeze in this sort of essence. So go and find out for yourself. That's all I can advise. Okay. Right. Drinky time, and then we'll have a quick chat if you want. So there's an awful lot in there, and you've probably got how many reams of notes?
Only 2 pages. Only 2 pages.
Oh, that's great, because I'm not a Gnostic expert. All right, let's get into it.
All right, sorry, somebody just tried to ring me. I just sent a message on air at the moment.
Right.
Right.
This is a bit.
Just sum it up in a way with an old limerick. There was a faith healer of Deal who said, although pain isn't real, if I sit on a pin and it punctures the skin, I dislike what I fancy I feel.
Yeah. I get what you're trying to say. I get what you're trying to say.
I don't know whether to start with I've got some notes before we even got on to the main one. I don't know whether to start with them or not, but I'll just briefly say that the discrepancy between the English resorts, the Welsh resorts, and the Scottish resorts tells me one thing categorically. There's no way it was ever 45%. To me, that utterly proves the referendum was rigged.
Yeah.
Because if it was formed in Scotland, the fact that there's not, after everything of the last so many years, to me, it proves one thing. It proves the actual support of independence. But anyway, that's a by the by against the whole rest of the subject.
No, that's fine. It's a valid point, and it's that's what's happening right now. That's what people are concerned about. That's what that is the things that are going on around us, and people are far more concerned with that. Oh dear, hang on. I forgot to switch my computer. Oh,
you're gonna die, are you?
Oh no, it's all right. I've just turned it on.
Cool.
I'm on here. So
I can still see and hear
I'm still here. That's okay.
Cool.
Okay.
The other thing
I've been running on the battery. And
yeah, I know what you mean.
Go on, sorry.
I've done that a few times. The other thing I think is ridiculous. How do you judge criminal damage on the value? Because, you could knock somebody's iPhone out of their hand and that would be a hell of a lot of value.
Yeah.
But it could be totally accidental. You know what I mean? If you just did it in a temper, then it could still be considered criminal value. But anyway, that's just
on that case, there are two kind of points of law. One is intent. Criminal damage is the intentional causing of damage, and the way that it has been decided, the way that it has been decided, how you put a scale on that, is that if you intentionally cause more, the more damage that you cause, the more monetary value that you damage, then the greater is the likelihood you would receive a harsher sentence. So it's a kind of way of quantifying
It is, but it's kind of
yeah.
flawed because you can have higher value without
Oh,
having more damage, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You could do a little bit damage to something that does something to something that's high value
Mm.
against a lot of damage to something that's not worth a lot
No value.
in monetary terms, but maybe somebody's whole life.
Mm.
So anyway, but
perhaps it's an attempt to simplify it. Yeah, it is, but that's the way it works, and that's the way it's operated.
So the main part of the rest of it, I'm going back and forth all over the shop because I do start with, and I'm just reading my notes in some ways, but I do start with how do you pick what goes into something and then immediately define the rest of it as heretical. There's something slightly unjust in that idea.
Yeah, I mean, had all of this material gone in, because it was a kind of with all the different councils that eventually whittled it down and debated and discussed and finally arrived at it. I would think that this is part of the construction of it's as you, well, how can I put it? In a way, the creation of the canon, the creation of the Bible, is the building block of the religion, isn't it? It is what you present as the evidence for your belief system, and so it was debated endlessly, and there was such a wide variety of things that could have gone in there. But to my mind, what went in there largely favored the organized church, which it was able to deliver this message. But not only deliver this message was not to be disseminated in a way that ordinary people could understand. They had to come through the filter of the church in order to be able to understand what this really meant. And what Gnosticism represented was the opposite of that. It was saying, you can do this for yourself. You don't need this organized system. You don't need all these, like Jesus railed against the fine robes of the Pharisees. He railed against the monetization of the worship system in the temple. He railed against all of that because, as he said, you don't need that because you already contain everything that you need. You only need to find it and awaken it. And that was not really a message that promoted the growth of a religion. If you can just do it for yourself, it's like, I don't know, it's almost like an advertising campaign. It's like saying, well, I can fix my own car. Oh, no, you can't fix your own car. God, no, you'll make the warranty invalid if you touch it. You've got to have an expert.
And this is kind of where I start having a problem, because I do see what they put in, what they decided was canon as crafting a narrative. I do see as it pushing people and keeping their own authority, keeping the authority of the church, building that thing. But I also see the flip side, because I'll give you an example from personal thing. I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a brain surgeon, but I'm a t-shirt printer. And the number of people that comes to me and, will you quote them? And, well, they don't really want to pay that. I could do it myself. And then they come back after they've made a mess of it themselves. And the more people I've met over the last 6 years, the more truthers I've met over the last 6 years, people can't always do it themselves. People
they
can't
can't.
always define, and this is a problem because I see both sides as a crafted narrative. I don't see either side as genuine in this. And it starts right from your very first story because it makes no sense. If you have a fullness, if you have utter perfection, if you have utter balance, you can't overflow. That's contradictory. If it's perfection, it wouldn't be able to overflow. If it's balance, it wouldn't be able to overflow. If it's utter fullness, it couldn't overflow because the overflow would be a contradiction to the balance, to the fullness, to the perfection.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from, but remember that there is a kind of definition to the edges of this thing. There is the pleroma in the center, and then there is the monad surrounding it, and surrounding that is the outer darkness, and it is in the outer darkness that into that the pleroma has overflowed. But I get where you're coming from. If the fullness is complete, then there is no room for anything else. Yeah, that point occurred to me as well, and it's but as I say, I'm not a gnostic. I always put the G in it. I'm not a Gnostic expert. It's something I'm investigating, and if we were to get on an expert in Gnosticism, then they might have an explanation for this. But it was a point that I
a bit quick.
We'd have to get a Gnostic expert on, or we'd have to look a little bit further. What I wanted to do was to give you the essence of what Gnosticism is, without necessarily, claiming to be an authority on it. So that might be it's like perhaps doing a Bible study and then saying, well, I don't understand why did this have to happen? Why did God want the Israelites to go and murder everybody in this area in the Amaleks? Why was that? Why did he demand that they killed all the men, all the women, all the children, all the dogs, cats, donkeys, goats, and even the trees? Why that? Why did God want that? And then perhaps
so that's when you're bringing in somebody like a priest to explain it, which is a complete contradiction of what you're saying they teach, because they're teaching it's within you and you don't need an exterior teacher to teach it to you.
Because I explained that bit. What Gnostics say is that let's take that example, that specific example of Amalek, that a divine being, a divine God, not Yahweh, who is one of the archons, would not demand that you do that because it serves no divine purpose other than bloodletting, suffering, and horror, and that is not something that a divine being would want. And it is in the reading of those what were Jewish texts that Gnosticism started to have a problem with this with this God that seemed constantly to be demanding that you sacrifice to it, that you did exactly what it told you, and would punish you if you didn't. The Israelites were punished for not killing every single man, woman, child, dog, cat. Perhaps they left a few goats alive, I can't remember, donkeys, and they were punished for that. So that is their kind of take on it, from what I can see. And not
I can see that argument against some of the teachings and not matching that up. It's kind of the whole idea that it's well, it kind of just feels to me like you say, they had a problem with, they started questioning why a divine God would say this. It's kind of just strikes me that what we've got here, maybe exactly like its opposite, is the questioner asking the question and then filling in the gaps with their own interpretation, with their own idea.
Everything is interpretation.
And then what you get is the whole repeated by people that don't understand that part of it was an interpretation, and then you get people that understand less of it and less of it each way you go down the line. And you end up with two versions of conflicting canon, neither of which is actually true.
But within
to me, and there is probably truth within both. But not whole truth.
What we're looking at there is Gnosticism's judgment of the Jewish texts, not the Gnostic Christianity, which is focused on Jesus and the teachings of Jesus. So
I'm kind of looking at both, really. I'm not. You
are kind of looking at both.
Kind of looking at all of their teachings. Seems to be a bit of truth and a lot added on.
Oh yeah. And you've obviously got to realise that the only connection, almost the only connection between the Old and New Testament, is Jesus. That is the bridge that bridges those two through. They must
go beyond the teachings of Jesus. We wouldn't have a Garden of Eden story or a creation story.
There's a reinterpretation.
So they must go into the Old Testament to have those two. And to be honest, that original one with the Sophia bit, that to me feels like the origin. That in itself feels like a Garden of Eden story. Because that
there is original sin in it.
There's like two Garden of Eden stories almost.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And the first one is Sophia.
Yeah, there's the divine Garden of Eden story where Sophia does something that they shouldn't do. But in the Gnostic Garden of Eden story, Adam and Eve and the snake actually do something that they should have done. They question the system. So there's a difference in the, again, exactly as you say, and you're not wrong, Alex. It's the interpretation of the message. One is that man carries the original sin of angering this deity, and because of that, every single generation that comes afterwards carries that divine, that original sin, and so you can never escape it. And the other tradition says there was no original sin. The original sin was this deity trying to enforce its will upon this creation in order to keep it bound within the rules that it had constructed. And it also speaks to this idea of inherited guilt. There is a concept, and I can't remember in which chapter in the Bible and God says, and I will punish the descendants until the 5th or 6th generation, meaning that you are responsible for the sins of your forefathers. And this is blood guilt. This is you will be punished by this deity for something that you never did, that you had no part in. And that again is a kind of contradiction of this all-knowing, all-loving divine entity. What you see in the Old Testament is a God who is angry, jealous, vengeful, wrathful, and punishes people for things they never did. That's what I think the Gnostics.
It is that concept of original sin. It is that concept of all we are born into sin sort of attitude.
Yeah.
And there is a vast element of that which does come from the teachings of the traditional church. It's just, it kind of feels like they're both making bits up. I don't know. It's like, so let's take that Garden of Eden story. Then if they're saying this was created by this demiurge, and I did notice Tori was putting all these names in before you said them, which was quite interesting. So she's evidently
people know probably more than I do.
She's evidently looked into it before. But
Yeah.
if that was created, if the Garden of Eden wasn't a garden, if it wasn't perfection, if it wasn't whatever, and it was just a cell, a prison, the original prison by this demiurge.
Yeah.
And he wanted to keep them trapped there, then why would he put the tree there in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that question could equally be answered the other way round.
Yeah.
But the motivation of what they're seeing as a deity, makes a difference.
Crazy enough, that's the same
motivation is of a jailer. You wouldn't leave your prisoners the key to the cell. So why would you put the tree there? If you're there as a benign father, teacher, whatever, as the traditional church paints the image, you could argue in some ways that you trust them, and it's about having trust, and it's about having a relationship where they rely. You know what I mean? You could argue it, and I'm not wholly in either camp really, but you can't really argue that for a jailer, because it's like giving your prisoner the key.
In a way, I suppose you could see it if you look at it from the point of it's a test of obedience. It's an obedience test.
But that works for a god. That doesn't work for a jailer. You wouldn't test your obedience of your inmates in your dungeon, in your castle, or in your or even in a modern prison. You wouldn't give them the key, or you wouldn't trust the obedience of your slaves.
It's I don't know. It's one of those things. But in either case, the tree is there. The tree exists. And when I was thinking about it, I related the Garden of Eden all the way back to the Mesopotamian creation story. And again, in the Mesopotamian story, Enki and the creators of mankind place Adama in the garden, and it's this, and it's so this is obviously much older than either the Old Testament story or the reinterpretation of it by the Gnostics, which came much later. So that tree has always been there, and it is. I agree with you entirely. It is a conundrum. But in the Mesopotamian story, the same idea of Adam and Eve and all humanity, Adama and all the other humans, are placed in a compound, in an area which is bounded, that they're not supposed, that they cannot leave, and they are corralled in this, albeit a rather comfortable prison. Once again they're placed there, and then it all goes wrong.
And that, of course, in itself is a problem with either version of Christianity. If it's preceded by the same stories in other world religions or other world histories, you've got a big problem with it being literal. I can't help thinking that there's a part of me that can't help thinking is what we are seeing is something we saw all the way through the Gospels. If you take the Christian tradition, it's parables. I can't help thinking we're seeing all of this as a parable.
Yeah.
And people on both sides are trying to take it literally, but I don't know that it is. The other thing that struck me, and I've never thought of it before, is so he started his ministry at 30 for 3 years. Have we got the first point in which 33 suddenly becomes a relevant number? Have I just been missing that for years?
Yeah, that comes from the sort of Masonic Solomon tradition from Judaism, which is, from Kabbalah.
Well, then I
which,
suppose it predates this then, I suppose.
yeah, and 33 has always been some kind of sacred number. So again, that might have been mapped across. And it is trying to pick the croutons out of a very large bowl of soup, because they're all bobbing around in there, and it's almost kind of up to you. But what I did notice when I first started reading about this was how much this has been retranslated into the modern age,
Yes.
with this idea of these interdimensional beings that are feeding on our energy. I mean, the Gnostics called them archons. Some people still use that term, these archons who control this reality, this created reality, and are using it as a feeding ground to sustain themselves, and their purpose is to keep this system going because it favors them. That's taken entirely from these Gnostic teachings. And so again, we're moving on another stage of kind of retelling of this story.
And that there's a lot that's been leaping through, and this is perhaps my problem with it, because the divine spark comment's been made, the awakening, we all keep being told we're going for a great awakening. It's all the racial vibrations nonsense again, is what it's being recreated into. I'm not saying that's necessarily original teaching, but that's where you keep hearing a lot of this terminology come in. It's got the whole vibe thing, and that's what to me is the dangerous part. But I'm jumping ahead in a way.
I'm just looking at what Nick said. That is what Alex did say, Nick. She did say he started his ministry at 30 and died at 33.
Yeah,
that is what you said. So she didn't say he started it. Yeah, so that's kind of what she did say. That's the accepted, authorized kind of version of what happened. There isn't an awful lot of dispute about what actually, the facts and where Jesus went and what he did and all that lot. That is not kind of questioned in Gnosticism, and that shows you its origins, that it comes from that Christian tradition. It's entirely what you said. It's the interpretation of those actions and the interpretation of what his teachings said. That's where the bifurcation starts, you might say.
And that's again a contradiction, though, because they say for 18 years he's going around Egypt, India, and learning from all these teachers.
Yeah.
But they just said you don't need teachers. So do you not need teachers, or have they just fallen out with the leadership of the church? Well, is it just one type of teacher you don't need? Because again, the idea of you walking towards the light, and you need to stop walking towards the light, and you need to do it this specific way that they're defining. You need to learn what they're telling you to learn. So you shouldn't have any other teachers, but you should do exactly what they're telling you to learn. It's a contradiction again.
Kind of contradicts,
And
the ideas that if you look at like karma, and you look at Hinduism, you look at the idea of being trapped on this not a bell. You're trapped on this wheel of reincarnation, this wheel of karma. That carries into the Gnostic tradition, and that is what they say was kind of brought through from Jesus's travels and learnings, and the purpose that they ascribed to those travels and learnings is it was a kind of preparation for this entering of what you might call the Holy Spirit, but what they call the Christ, this eon, this force from elsewhere that transformed Jesus.
That contradicts contradicts it as well, because that level of interference, and the interference when they're teaching people to, or they're trying to, or they're going past them on the way to get out of the recurring cycle, and that interference of sending what they're calling what they're defining as the Christ down into man, that interference contradicts the very start of it, when they had no outside connection and they literally cast somebody out for having that outside, being outside. And they wouldn't touch the outside. They had no connection to the outside. They had no need of the outside, is what they're saying effectively.
Yeah.
So why are they suddenly interfering in that outside now?
Because it's to do with what they call it. It's something to do with the guilt of Sophia. Because Sophia caused all of this, this Eon wanted to try and put things right. And in order to put things right after it had all gone so kind of badly wrong, and all this God had been running, this sort of demigod, this demiurge, this partly divine being had done all of this, then somehow that there was some kind of intervention, and that the way that intervention was done was to intervene directly, and therefore bring the truth to mankind in order that they would listen to the message and awaken. That's the kind of essence of that.
That they're then doing what they condemned Sophia for doing, wanting to think. So they contradicted their whole thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that a contradiction. I would say,
really, because she wanted to know.
Yeah.
Well, let's use a term that people would understand it as. She wanted to know God, or she wanted to know heaven.
Yeah.
So they brought heaven to earth, or they sent from heaven to earth, so that Jesus could know heaven. And yet they condemned Sophia for wanting to know heaven, and made her give birth or create some sort of evil half god.
Yeah. Well, that is a kind of but without that intervention, then there would be no hope. And if you look at the Bible itself, the Holy Spirit does come down. The Holy Spirit does fill people, and cause them to be filled with the.
Yeah, but the traditional Bible, or the traditional version of the Bible, because as we say, it's been amended and whatever.
The one
we've got suggests an intended relationship between God and man. It doesn't suggest a God that has no interest in anything beyond its own realm, and only accidentally, and the creation is accidental. That whole idea of an accidental creation is probably more akin to the whole scientific Big Bang argument than it is to traditional creation stories. But
what fascinates me is, rather than kind of picking it apart, what fascinates me is that this was Christianity. That this was a whole. I mean, I've looked into at least 4 or 5 different branches of Gnosticism that all have the same kind of basic structure, basic belief system, but it's slightly different in each sort of sect. There are different names. There are different There are other beings apart from archons. There are kind of lesser demons, as it were, which the main story doesn't mention, but which seem to get added on, much in the way that you've got the sort of hierarchy of demonology. You've got the kind of upper echelons of demons, and then you've got the lower ranks. Well, there are versions that talk about these other lower ranks and their assigned kind of roles and jobs. So again, it it mirrors the same kind of imagery that we're given of the divine and the lower orders, as it were, those that are beyond redemption, you might say, that who want to drag you down with them. And that is reflected in that belief that this entire system is a kind of lower, lesser, somewhat jaded reality that was created by something that was imperfect itself, and that really shouldn't have happened. If you really look at it, it really shouldn't have occurred. And as you pointed out, it was the result of what you might call divine original sin. But it explains that away by kind of saying, well, that, I don't know, how can I put it, that urge to know what the greater, because in the Gnostic tradition, God, the pleroma, the center of all things, isn't really active in any. It's
and then that's the problem I have with them. Then saying it interferes, because they're saying it isn't active. They almost paint it, or the way you described it, you almost painted it as being unaware of the outside, having no knowledge beyond itself, because it needed nothing beyond itself.
Yeah,
and that's why I have a problem with the overflowing, because it's balanced. It's inward looking. It's not, like you say, the problem is trying to find language
to explain this.
But it doesn't make sense then to interfere, and the rest of it. And that's why the whole thing feels to me like somebody is trying to interpret parts of truth and filling in their own bits, and adding their own things. And
because that is unknowable. That is, it is as unknowable as every other creation sort of story. It is something that's beyond our reach, as it were. It's beyond the reach of what you can know, and therefore
it is the now we know in part scenario. Except it doesn't seem to accept that it knows in part, and it seems to have a lot more. I don't know. I have a problem with both sides. I don't class either side as pure truth, but I don't class either side as pure truth, and that's the thing. I don't know, I hadn't heard of it before, but it rings warning bells with me because of the way it gets translated into modern life, because of the whole vibe crap, Great Awakening crap, and all of this. And there's one big one which I'll get to in a second, but the one bit I will agree is people are too concerned with what happens to the vessel. There are worse things than dying. There are worse things. And we have created a world where people are so afraid of what happens to the vessel that they won't do anything. And yet there's a flip side. And that is where it bugs me, because, yes, the whole thing's the original narrative of Christianity in many ways perhaps is an inversion, but so is this version an inversion. They both are. And you can't translate selling your religious leader out for 30 pieces of silver into being the only one who truly understood what's going on. That doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Not for you. No. I mean, I kind of got what they meant. What they meant was that Barabbas, oh God, my mind's gone blank. Judas was the only one, like you said, that truly understood that it was necessary for the completion of Jesus's ministry for him to defeat death. This is what they're saying. They don't apportion blame to him. Obviously, I mean, he was paid. If you read the Bible, he was paid, obviously, but then threw that money away out of guilt and went and hung himself. but what they're saying, what they seem to be saying, I mean, I can't say, I might not have it entirely right. What they seem to be saying is that it may be that, and they explain that in that piece where they said the sinner might be more righteous than the pious conformist, and that the actions God, my mind, I've exhausted my mind because I'm struggling to hold on to names. The actions that Judas took were necessary, were a necessary part of the story that needed to be told. And I think that if I get that right, if I interpreted that right, that I think is what they were saying. So I can see your point. I can see your point. There are considerable differences with the Orthodox version. There are, but these differences were expunged and purged, and had we have not discovered a lot of this Gnostic text, we wouldn't really know about it, and that was exactly what the church wanted. It did not want this version to be a rival to the thing that they spent a long time crafting and putting together. And what Gnosticism says is that you crafted that and put it together in the same way that the demiurge crafted and put together this false world. And that in the same way that this world benefits the kind of vanity and desires of this demigod, that the thing that you created is there for the benefit of the system rather than the benefit of those that believe in it. And
I do see what they're saying in that, and I don't disagree. Yeah. And I don't mean to interrupt you, sorry, but it's just my.
No, you're all right. I've run out of words.
My mind's going all over the place. But it's to me, it's the Sunday school teacher, because it's the old story, and I think it was Sunday I was referencing it, but it's the old story where the Sunday school teachers, it's the woman praying, and the Pharisees come along and say, "Oh, thank you, God, that I'm not like that woman over there." And the Sunday school is teachers teaching this to the kids, and she ends it with, well, let's thank God, children, that we're not like those Pharisees.
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the traditional church is the Pharisees saying, well, this is what we want. This is what we want. Thank God we're not. Thank God we know what's truly happened, and we've kicked out this heresies out of the Bible, and thank God that we're giving you the true word. And then like the agnostics are coming along and saying, well, thank God that we're not like the traditional church, and we're giving you the true word. And probably
and in a way, what they've done as well is divide up humanity. Rather than giving everyone an equal chance. And this stood out to me when I read this. Rather than everyone starting from a level playing field, they assign 3 different kinds of humans. That reminded me of the caste system. It reminded me that there are these special people who have this knowledge and know how to use it. Then these others who are kind of stumbling around in the dark trying to find it. They're well intentioned, but they won't be able to do it. And then you've got this scum who really don't give a shit and are just out there covering themselves in mud and whoops. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the Hylics and the psychics and the pneumatics. And that's
where I start saying crap, I'm afraid, because that's the bit I have a massive problem with. It's back to what people have been going on the last 6 years, and it's the Great Awakening, and we just need to raise our vibrations and manifest our way out of here. And no, I'm sorry, it's crap.
What is not explained is is there any movement between these categories? Can you move? Does it say anything about there? Can you move from being a Heilig?
Well, I assumed, and I might be wrong, but I assumed the way they pictured it flowing into the other, and the guy almost reaching out from the ice to the water to the, because they seem to have used the 3 states of water to explain it.
Yeah.
And they're talking about a journey of consciousness. So I assumed from the image that it was. I hadn't heard of most of this stuff until tonight.
There is a possibility of progression.
And that's the problem, because it's nonsense. It's the whole and this is where this is the only place that I will agree with the original church. It is fucking dangerous. And it's dangerous for the same reason that Trust the Plan was dangerous. It's dangerous for the same reason that Raise Your Vibrations is dangerous, or any of this crap, or common law is dangerous, because it's teaching you that you don't need to do anything. It's teaching you that, yes, we're stuck in this world. We need to escape this. Well, you don't need to escape this world. That's where the problem comes. We're all going to die at some point. Yeah, fair enough. But we don't need to free ourselves from the system. We need to free the system from what's controlling it. And if you want to consider that as weird entities that are not quite human, or I mean, it may be, we don't know what's coming out with disclosure, it may be entities that are not human. But if you want to consider that it's like a system that's feeding on your hate and fear, and we're getting too close to Loosh or whatever the thing was you were on about before, because we're getting right back to that.
Loosh comes from gnosticism. I deliberately never mentioned Loosh, because
I know you described it.
No, Loosh comes from gnosticism, because it's the energy that
I know you didn't use the word, but I recognise the description.
Yes, I know you would, because
it's getting too close.
You pay attention.
I do. But it's that idea that we need to free ourselves from the system. And to me, that is the big lie. And that is the big lie through traditional religion, because the same thing in traditional religion has people saying, oh, it's the end times, Jesus will come back.
And we'll all be saved.
We don't have to do anything. It's all sit on your hands. It's like Trust the Plan. It's like the Great Awakening. It's all of it. And all of it is don't act. Don't do anything. Don't rock the vote. Vote some other fuckwit in, to get back to the start of tonight's show, and let them solve it. And all you do is go from worse to worse to worse to worse.
But the Gnostics basically say this is kind of your problem and you need to fix it yourself. But
they say you fix it by getting out of the system, which means you don't get recreated. You don't do nothing while you're here. You don't do nothing to address the inhumanity of the world. You do nothing to stop Palestinian children being murdered. You do nothing to stand against the evil of this world. You just work a way for you to get out of it when you die, so you don't come back again.
Yeah,
it's selfish. It's predominantly selfish.
As with the rest of Christianity, they do.
I'm not saying I agree with them either.
Works, and they encourage. They want you to follow the message of Jesus and be while you are here to be trying to be nice to each other. So I'll not say I couldn't say that they're telling you to do nothing and trust the plan so much. What they're telling you is to try and make the best of what you've got right now, but you could do better. That's kind of what the message is.
The message is change yourself, though, in a way, and try and get out of it, not change the world.
Oh, no, I'll not change the world, because there's a rotten system.
Because they're saying you can. They're saying it's that teaching of a powerlessness. And that is what this system does teach us. But that is the wrong teaching, in my opinion, because that idea just keeps you down in your lane, that keeps you stuck in your thing, that stops you, that keeps you looking inwards. And this is the whole thing, the divine spark in you business. It's focusing your attention inward when we should be focusing it outward. We should care what's happening to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
Me,
I entirely get where you're coming from. I mean, if you look into Buddhism, that's the same. It's the same message. Work on yourself, because that's, you know, ultimately it's up to you. If you look at Hinduism, it basically boils down to, we've got all these gods, and well, they're all one god, but really, you better work on yourself, and that's the message. That is the message, that it's you know, exactly in the way that you said. And in the Gnostic, I always put the G in the Gnostic message. It's like gnome. Why the hell is there a G in gnome?
English.
What's it there for?
I mean, some K in night.
Yeah. I don't understand. English is a very odd language.
And why do we drop the H from the letter H? H.
Yeah. I've heard of dropping H's. You know, people drop H's all the time.
But people say H. They drop the H from the H. From the letter H.
Yeah, why have you dropped the H out of H? Yeah. God, I'm going around.
Now we're talking about the weirdness of
I kind of I see your point. It's not about improving the world. It's about improving yourself. That is the message. And perhaps if we spent a little more time trying to improve the world would be a better place. But that is explained away in the fact, you can't change it because it's a rotten system designed by a rotten God, and it's all broken. And that is a kind of explanation for why you can't fix anything. You can't fix it because it's designed to be broken. It's an evil system that's designed to be evil, and therefore you can't change it. And that's it. I know that's what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Okay. I didn't get the escaping. It's basically a death cult.
Death cult.
Well, it is in many ways. It's
life's a death cult
until you die permanently instead of come back.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because coming back's not a desirable thing, because coming back just means more pain, more suffering, more nastiness, more of everything that's not nice about the world. And so it's
so change the world. So there is something nice about the world, and there are things that are nice in the world. There is good in this world.
Let's go around the wheel again.
Ignores it. I'll go around the wheel again if you.
Well, you can't change the world. That's right.
I will try and change the world. Every time I go round that fucking wheel, I will try and change the world, because I will not
that's
sit
the message.
there and look for an escape. And I'll happily be a high lick if it comes to it.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, this is why I bloody love these things. I absolutely love this shit, because not only does it draw you into depths of research that might be up a blind alley, God knows, but it's an interesting blind alley. But not only does it do that, it's just provided us, and we could continue this conversation for another hour if you wanted to. It's provided us with a discourse in which we've explored all kinds of avenues and bounced around theological stuff, and we bounced around, it's a form of entertainment. I don't know if it's entertaining out there. If I've paid scant attention, apart from now and again, to the chat, but it is entertaining intellectually, isn't it? It just is. And for just a brief moment, it kind of takes you away from just how shit the world is. But in the end, what you come back to is just how shit the
Sure.
world is. So it's a cycle. So I've enjoyed the cycle. It's been a pleasant cycle through an unknown country, and and what are we if we're not cyclists? I mean, I don't cycle anywhere. I drive, but
I can't
we are
anywhere.
explorers.
I see. Let me just call out one other lie while we're here.
Oh, go on.
It's like riding a bike. It's not like riding a bike. I cannot ride a bike. I could ride a bike when I was younger. The last time I tried to get on a bike, I could not ride said bike.
No.
It's like riding a bike is a lie. You forget how to ride a bike.
No, you do.
Not how to ride a bike.
Yeah, you have to relearn how to ride a bike because it's a skill that you haven't used for a very long time. I mean, when you were a kid, you could ride with no hands. You could do all sorts of shit, couldn't you? Because you did it every day. You biked here, you biked with your mates, you biked to school. It was second nature. But apart from adults who still ride bikes, very few adults, if you just slapped them on a bike, they'd probably fall off. Which I had to be held on to a bike last time I was put on it. When my daughter was buying a bike, she said, "Try that bike out for me, Dad, see what you think." So I said, "I don't think you want me to ride that bike." And it was incredibly difficult. But there you go, yeah. So I suppose skills are like an edged weapon. If you don't keep it sharp, then they just go dull. So
Anyway,
there was a point to that
where
one.
that came into that conversation.
Yeah, it's from the saying it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Or falling off a log. I can understand, because falling off a log's pretty easy.
Oh yeah.
Falling off a log takes
at
no
falling off
skill
logs.
whatsoever. It's you just fall off a log, especially if that log's in water. You ever watch log rolling? That kind of it's a kind of Canadian sport where guys run on a log, that's in water, and they run kind of with the log going round underneath them, and the idea is to stay on as long as you can. It's like rodeo but with wood, so it's that's a kind of the idea. But yeah, it's amazing what you do when you've got nothing else but trees. Everything was invented by lumberjacks. What the bloody hell are we going to do today? Let's see who can stay on that log long enough. We've invented a sport, log rolling, and I think that's where a lot of sports come from. It's pure boredom. Let's see who can chuck this stone the furthest. But we'll not just chuck it. You have to go like that. Yeah. Javelin, I can understand, came from sort of spear throwing.
Yeah.
If you were good at javelin, then you were a good spear chucker. So that one's obvious. But some sports baffle me as to where they ever originated.
Maybe they were throwing cannonballs to people. The old shop.
Yeah. Maybe. There you go.
They run out. They kept getting killed running it from. I'm making this up, by the way, but they kept getting killed running the cannonballs from one to another. So they were down to one crew feeding all three cannons. So they had to start throwing them.
But how come there's no sport called cannonball catching?
Because it just landed on the ground behind me.
Landed on the ground next to it. Right. There you go. Yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah. Bizarre sport.
I have no idea where it came from, to be honest.
No. But some sports are bizarre.
Discus used to be the one I used to do out of the throwing ones.
Yeah. Do you remember back when I was at school? These days they don't let them chuck real things about. They don't let kids chuck like proper size. I think they were aluminium, the ones that we had, javelins around, spiky javelins. They don't let kids do that anymore.
Oh, that's not
I don't know if they let them throw real discus.
Oh,
I
was trying to practice it at home at one point, and I did make one out of paper mache, but I was almost supposed to make a discus. I didn't know.
Yeah.
It worked. reasonably well. I think I weighted it with something. I can't remember what I put in the middle, but I think I weighted it with something.
I'm always fascinated by kids. I've spent this entire week. I've had a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old staying here all week because their mum and dad's gone away on holiday to Magaluf to get drunk for a week because that's what parents. I never got to do that, but apparently that's what grandparents are for. You just dump your kids on them and give them no instructions. I had to go and pick my 10-year-old up from Scouts. And when I got there, I was subjected to the 3rd degree because it was a giant Scout meeting. And there was beavers and cubs and Scouts and explorers. So there were the queues to get in for the cars, it was 6 lanes of traffic to get in this place. And when you got there, you were given the 3rd degree. What group are you looking for? I don't know. What group? Well, what Scout group? Oh, well, what number have you been assigned? What do you mean number? Well, what number group are you picking up? I don't know. Oh, right. Well, wait here. Somebody goes off and finds somebody else with another clipboard. Meanwhile, you've got 50 other people behind you waiting. I wish they'd have told me any of this. No, right, bye then. There's the, their clothes are there. What have you packed? I don't know. They did it themselves. Anyway, that's enough of that. But I think that the point I was trying to get to was that if you give children any amount of kind of loose material, I don't know, paper, cardboard, sticks, anything, the first thing they make with it is a weapon. They always do, especially boys do. They make a club or look what I've made, Grandad. Whack, and then they whack each other with them. That is normal behavior.
It is normal behavior. Right, it's normal behavior. Be a whole another debate.
Another program, yeah.
I used to make bows and arrows out of these green garden sticks.
Yeah, string. Yeah.
I used to watch Robin Hood a bit too much, but
oh yeah. Robin Hood was a very dangerous. William Tell was even worse because it started with somebody shooting an apple off somebody's head. How many kids have tried to reconstruct that in the past? I
never tried to do that one, to be honest. I was usually playing on my own. I was never really very sociable as a kid. I spent about one summer playing out in the street, and the rest of them were spent skating around my back garden.
Went on in my head. I had a best friend for a while. He used to live across the street, a couple of houses away. So like just down the street a little bit, but I could see his house from mine. It was only maybe 100 yards away, maybe. And our favourite game, because we both had front gardens, was to spend all afternoon hurling clods of baked earth at each other. You'd never let kids do that today. No. And some of them would hit the house and the house would be covered in clots of dirt stuck all over. Or one would hit the window, or something like that. And mum would come out and say, blah, 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 stop doing that. And you just stopped for 10 minutes, then he started again. But I don't know. Dangerous sports. We used to play flying arrows, which was basically like a sort of, used to be able to buy the, like sticks. It was green, this wood. I don't know what it was. It was like dowling.
Yeah.
And you cut a slot in one end, and then you got cigarette cards or the tea cards that they used to have. And you made flights out of them. And then you had a notch and a string, and you would be able to throw it for miles. And they were extremely dangerous. But so lovely. Don't know how we got onto that subject anyway. Right, but I can tell that we have wandered off into obscurity and random shit. So it's time to kind of once more draw a veil over another episode.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it to you to remind our audience of what we're doing for the rest of the week.
Yeah, okie dokie. It's Friday now, so we will be back on Sunday at 1:50 with the Lone Gunman rides again, and at 8 p.m. with Last Jacobites International. I'll be back on Tuesday at 9 p.m. with The Gleam in the North, Inner Beyond on Wednesday at 7 p.m. with Smokem, and Glenn will be back next Friday with more from the Man in Black. So take care. We will see you soon. Good night.